You got a degree that actually is useful. I got a theater degree because I don't like money. So, JD, I don't know if you know this, but I spent a little time in the hospital.
Oh, donating your time, helping those less fortunate?
No, no, I had a respiratory issue. It
Oh,
turns out in January in Chicago, a lot of people have this, and it was wild. I went to the emergency room because I was having some breathing issues, and I don't normally get sick like this ever. So it was kind of bizarre, kind of different. And I ended up being in the emergency room for 30 hours. And
oh,
do you know what sort of things you can witness in an emergency room in Chicago? It's
oh.
it's I met some of the most interesting people of my life, and a lot
Friends
of
for
the
life. You
things
got friends for life there.
I got friends for life, and most of the things that I heard, I probably shouldn't repeat because it was just a lot of swears. Uh, but feeling much better now. Excited to have January almost over and moving into a new month. How are you doing?
Uh, Better than that, right? We were texting back and forth as you're in the hospital and all that. I can't imagine, especially that time of year to be able to have to sit and do that. Way to issue in the new year, by the way. That's not the type of party you want to have.
It can only
Uh,
get better from here.
it's only up. It's only up. No, things are good. Things are good, and we're excited for this week. I've got Joy Baer on the show. I'll give a full introduction here after the break, but I worked with Joy for a number of years, and one of the best and impassioned and excitable leaders you'll ever meet. So we're going to pick her brain on what makes a good leader and get her origin story and her advice. So when we come back, we have Joy Baer. Today's guest is Joy Baer, a seasoned C-level technology executive with over 25 years of experience in the media and advertising industry. With a proven track record in driving business growth and profitability, Joy's led both public and private companies providing enterprise software and SaaS solutions to Fortune 500 and global media and tech companies. She spent 7 years growing and leading Strata and ad tech division of Freewheel within Comcast after founding and selling Spot by Spot, an ad tech firm to Comcast in 2008. She began her career in technology consulting with Willis Towers Watson. Now, an independent advisor, Joy serves on the board of the International Women's Forum of Chicago, is vice chairman for membership for the Economic Club of Chicago, sits on the board of QuickPay, a high-view portfolio company, and is a valued advisor to James DeWayne Group. Joy, thank you so much for joining us.
It is my pleasure. Thanks, JD.
So, full disclosure, I've known Joy a long time. We go way back. We worked together for a number of years. And I was telling Mike before we got on this call that I think after calling my parents, after my kids were born, Joy was the first person I called. So definitely important person in my world. And Joy, thank you so much for getting here. And we're going to dive a lot into leadership here because you've spent your whole career leading teams, leading people, leading companies. So through this extensive career in tech and media industries, let's start there. What's one leadership lesson you've learned along the way that's really helped shape your approach to running teams and driving growth?
I think that's a great question. And early on, I realized that transparency and trust were the absolute keys in my team leadership approach to drive high performing teams, to drive value, to drive the type of commitment and connection that people needed to understand the mission and to be able to, put in the extra effort and win together. So really I say transparency, and with transparency comes trust, right? So, sharing things about the financial setup of the organization, the financial successes and the financial losses, what our targets are, and how each and every person ties into those targets through their teams. Providing that kind of information, and then also transparency into how decisions are made in the organization as well, really makes people feel like they're a part of it, as opposed to a them us mentality. And I think that's one of the keys of my leadership style that has been successful for me and the companies I've been involved in.
Joy, JD and I like to ask a lot of our guests about origin stories and how they got started. Now, getting into tech, leadership, media, advertising, all the things that you've been involved in, and some of the other clubs you're part of, philanthropic things, civic things that you're working on. How did it all start for you? How did you jump into this or find this avenue?
Well, so one of the things I like to talk about is my early childhood. Well, maybe not too early, maybe middle school childhood experience, babysitting for a family. They had an Apple IIc at the time. And I was able to, while the kids were sleeping, play text-based adventure games. Somehow or another, the dad taught me how to do it. And I started playing really young. And I loved it. I loved the logic and reasoning of, at the time, no graphics, no UI to experience, but it was this really cool, interactive way that used logic and language because it was just text. So that's how I got the bug. And I went to school, actually went to Drake University. And Mike, I know you're a fellow alum. I learned, I studied computer science there and was always a tech person from early days. And I think I'm still a builder mentality. I'm always interested in how things work and how to fix things. So that was my platform, or the basis of sort of who I am as a person. And when I started building software for Watson, for Willis Towers Watson, back in the 90s, I pretty quickly realized that as much as that was fun and productive, I could do even more if I leveraged my people skills to build teams out and to work with multiple software developers and using my own experience to create a multiplier effect with other people. So that was the basis of it. I got into ad tech shortly after that, and I think the ball kept on rolling, and there was a lot of fun and a lot of successes along the way.
That's really cool, and the fact that you went to Drake too, which we had talked about before we hopped on, but it sounds like you got a degree that actually is useful. I got a theater degree because I don't like money. But one thing I did learn at Drake was how to have a fake ID and have it taken away when you go to Peggy's, which happened a couple times.
Yep. I was actually grandfathered into the 18-year-olds can drink age, but nice. I understand the fake ID world too. And our fake IDs are pretty lame compared to what they look like today, I think. So anyway, no great, good stuff. And actually you're in theater today and I'm in tech today. So here we are. This is great.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I mean, for me, yeah, a little bit. This is my theater.
Joy, I have to ask, because leading a technology company, and especially one as large as you are part of, it's often historically, you and I've talked about this many times on stage, that can be a boys' club at times. And being a woman leader in technology, how did you elevate others around you? And how did you take that seat at the table to inspire? Because at the time, it was somewhat unique for you.
Great question also. When I was often the only woman in the room, especially in a very younger technology company back in the 90s, for example, it still is true today. I'm very merit-based and very merit-oriented in my thinking. So I knew a certain amount of things about technology when I'm sitting in a room full of developers. And I was always willing to have those toe-to-toe conversations and express myself. And if I didn't know something, I'm still able to, carry on the conversation, understanding that I don't know everything, but I know actually different things than a lot of times the rest of the room does. So always felt very comfortable with that personally. But I realized as I evolved in leadership and took on different roles that leading by example wasn't going to be the only way for me to help, especially women in tech, really find their place and their footing, because everybody comes at things differently, right? So I invested a lot of my time and energy in coaching and mentoring young women at various levels, and I still continue to do that to this day, and at different early career, mid-level career, and even executive career now, looking to get board and advisory positions, which I've managed to break into successfully, and I'm really enjoying that part of my career as well. So I think it's about really digging in and having these one-on-one connections with women. And then from those, I've learned a lot about what different people's barriers are, and then am able to use that in more public forums to share that experience and bring people more information about. Just because I operate the way I operate doesn't, as I said, translate to the larger group. But when I can bring examples from the other women that I'm involved with for coaching and teaching, I'm able to have a broader platform and have more impact.
A quick follow-up there as well. Who inspired you? You're inspiring others now. Who inspired you early on?
I had a great mentor by the name of John Shelton, who was a very he was just a mastermind of both logic and reason and strategy. And although a man, not that it needed to be a woman, but he reached across all different types of people and taught me so much really early in my career when I was really impressionable. And I think that that's someone I go to mentally. It's interesting. I don't have a female person that would have inspired me specifically. But I've had some great mentors along the way.
Joy, for those that might not be familiar with this group, can you speak to your time a little bit more about being on the board for the International Women's Forum, and talk about their mission and your experiences with some of the people you've met there?
Sure. So the International Women's Forum is all about equity, driving equity for women in leadership worldwide. So it's a very global organization, and they have conferences that happen in global cities around the world every year, and also cornerstone conferences that happen in a more usually a U.S. city as well. And so the signature of the organization is around this travel and these conferences, because there's really an immersion experience in what women in leadership look like in these global organizations and global places. Locally in Chicago, I was involved in the board, and I bring technology perspective to all my boards. So it was also for that local chapter as well. And I've had a really great, rich group of women, and learned a lot about Chicago leadership, a lot of people in Chicago leadership over the years in that organization. And I'm actually also currently on the board now of the Economic Club of Chicago. While it doesn't have the women only focus, they're very interested in expanding the club's diversity and perspective, and so that there's representation from the whole Chicago marketplace. And I've been very involved in membership at the club, at the Economic Club as well, and really enjoyed bringing that both technology focused, but also helping the club evolve into its current state through membership, which is obviously what it's all about. People are what makes clubs work. So yeah, those are two really enriching, great experiences for me I've had over the last several years.
I saw that you were on that board as well, and I looked into it a little bit, and it sounds like 70% of the members are C-suite execs, and then the other 30% are kind of a mixture of different types of people. Do they need a failed actor from Drake? Because I'd be happy to join. So with that outreach that they're doing for that other 30%, are they looking for politicians? Are they looking for aldermen? I guess an alderman is a politician. What sort of people are they looking to add to the group?
Yeah, so the club, I think, aspires to represent as much leadership from the city of Chicago in all of its facets as possible. So a lot of that 30% won't necessarily be a C-suite, but might be a very senior executive from a large organization that has a Chicago office or offices. So it turns out to still be very senior, high-level leadership within the large orgs and or founders or CEOs or C-suite from medium and large organizations that are based in Chicago as well. So the experience, and then the club also has keynote speakers and dinners 4 times a year, which are such wonderful experiences where they invite CEOs and politicians that are relevant to Chicago. Actually, President Trump spoke to the membership before the election. We've had Obama came and spoke to the club in years past, Rahm Emanuel, but also CEOs like of Coca-Cola, the CEO of Walmart's coming later this year. So there's lots of very high level company execs that come and speak to the club. And it's really enlightening to be able to be a leader and then sit in a room with a number of other hundreds or thousands in that case of other leaders that are at C-suite level, and be able to hear the insights and perspectives from these really inspiring CEOs talk about or leaders talk about their experience. And it validates certain things that you're doing and teaches you things and gives you things to think about. So it's been a fantastic experience.
Joy, you've advised numerous companies, as you've mentioned, especially in the media and technology space. How do you think leadership in these industries is going to evolve, let's say in the next 5 to 10 years, especially in the rise of AI and automation today?
That's a great question too, JD. You're stumping me with some of these. They're so good. So I do think AI, well, it's interesting today because there's some AI scuttlebutt going around right now that's I think crashing markets, but AI definitely has an opportunity. It'll just be very disruptive for us as we, in a good way, to changing our businesses and changing the way people are thinking about the world and leading as well, because you're now able to use AI to resource what used to be only through people power. And I don't know that we have a clear line of sight into how that's going to ultimately really change our organizations, but I'm absolutely certain that it will revolutionize every single industry, from healthcare to tech in terms of what's been, and transportation and everything else that's possible. I think it's going to take dynamic leaders who are comfortable with a lot of change. I think you're going to see that type of leader rise in this new environment. I don't think the traditional promotion paths, and I've been in this role in mid-level management, and now I'm moving up to more senior management and eventually aspire to be in the C-suite, is necessarily going to be the way we're going to see leaders evolve in this space, because I think AI is going to allow us to leapfrog and take on different approaches, and you're going to need people with minds that can evolve there. I think we still need core leadership skills. We're always going to need to be able to work with people and understand how good leadership principles play. But I do think we're in for some huge changes there.
I was going to ask as a follow-up to that, if computers and robots really need us in the future, if we're going to be needed at all, in your opinion, what do humans bring to the table when, they can start a war, travel back in time, do all the things that robots do?
You've been watching a lot of movies, Mike.
I have.
Yeah,
I think
and
there's a lot
I've
of insecurity about it all too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I've read a lot of science fiction in my day, so I am absolutely familiar with what is believed could be with regard to AI and technology. I don't see a world where we're going to allow it and design it such that there isn't the people power that and the creativity and dynamicism and reproduction that we all provide to this planet. It's interesting. I'm not sure where it stops and starts. I was saying to my husband at a fancy restaurant the other night, I was like, when will we come in here and order a meal and it's no longer a Michelin star restaurant or a chef in the back, a celebrity chef, but rather a completely robotic AI driven kitchen that, drops all the right food in all the right places on all the right stoves when I press order, and then delivers maybe through a food runner my plate. And we were going back and forth about what that's going to look like. And I just, it's going to change everything, but and so now in that example, the only thing I've got is maybe a chef who gave it a recipe, or maybe it's just an AI generated recipe from all the great recipes that are possible, and a food runner. And I'm sure we can get around having a food runner. So I could talk myself in and out of having people around or not having people around in a lot of places. And I think it's going to happen pretty quicker than we think in a lot of ways too. So it already is, right?
The consistency of the food will be better, right? Because it'll be the
Yes.
same every time for the most part. So Joy, as a leader, how do you stay grounded and continue to foster passion and drive in both yourself and your teams, especially during challenging times? It's easy to lead when things are great, but how do you to foster that during challenging times?
I think when you're faced with challenges, crisis, business loss, things of that nature, you have to set the tone with your teams and give them a North Star that says, we're going to navigate our way through this and we're going to do it together. This isn't a fault or blame. This is about us moving forward in a positive way, not looking back. I think those sentiments are really important when you're trying to galvanize support and drive productivity when people are either scared or upset or worried. I'd fall back on also my point about transparency, being as honest about what the outcomes are of those challenges, good or bad, is actually a really uniting force. You might think, oh, I'm going to shield or hide the realities from the team so that they can, just stay focused on the work. I find that to be a shortfall, or it's not the right thinking. It's because if you are honest and transparent with people, they tend to, like all of us, if we're human, we want to know what's at stake and what's involved. And I feel more respected and more committed and loyal if I have honesty as the base of my relationship.
So it seems like burnout is very real for a lot of different industries. And I've heard it's especially bad in the tech world. I don't know if that's true or not, but there seems to be a lot of people that talk about tech being an industry or sector that there's a lot of burnout. with our phones following us everywhere, or we bring them everywhere, and work never turning off, what do you do to have a proper work and life balance?
Great question. So I'm very big on a work-life balance. I'm very big on compartmentalizing the work that I'm doing from the play and family and friends that is so meaningful in my life as well. And I think that if you can't strike that balance, the burnout is inevitable. One of the people that I admire so much from a technology standpoint is Elon Musk. I've always been so amazed at what he's been able to do with Tesla and SpaceX. And I read his biography and learned how incredibly dedicated he is to he just drives his people with almost a maniacal force of energy and commitment. And you know, as much as I like what he's accomplished, that part of his style I can't relate to. I read the book and thought, that's just not how I do things. And so does that mean that I'm not going to be one of the major disruptors of our time in technology? Probably. But I'm still you know, wildly successful from my own standards, leader and business person who has managed to strike a balance between work and life. And I really encourage my employees and the people around me to operate that way as well, and have always been like that. So for better or for worse, that's how I think about it.
Joy, if you didn't head down the path you headed down with software and leading companies, what would you have done? If you go back and you know, what was option B, or what would have drove you?
I probably would have gotten involved in commercial construction. I think building skyscrapers, building commercial buildings, changing the landscape of cities and our planet with our technology applied in that way has always been really fascinating to me, and something I think I would have been great at and gotten involved in if I could. So maybe some blend of architecture, which has a little more of a creative bent, as well as the commercial construction, which plays to my both technology, organization skills, and the like. I bet you didn't know that one about me.
I learned something today.
So to that Drake graduate that's coming out this spring, what sort of advice would you give to this person if they want to get into the tech sector?
Well, I would say take any job you can get. Don't worry about your first job. Never really matters what you're doing the first time around. And don't be afraid to try something that doesn't seem like it's a perfect fit, because if you're willing to do it for, I always say a year. But nowadays, I don't think all the kids even adhere to that. And that's more, you know, Gen Z mentality. But I would say try a job, any job, just to get your feet wet. And my son's actually going to graduate from CU Boulder in May, and I'm encouraging. He's in business development, sales, so I'm encouraging to take a job with any company he can get. And he's got a couple offers in his pocket, which is great, so he can build on that. But it doesn't matter if it's in logistics or technology or chemical sales or whatever it is. It's just get some experience, and then you can go from there. And I would say the same is absolutely true about technology.
Final question for you here, Joy. If you had to go back to young Joy Baer, starting off, what advice would you give to send you on your career path as you're going the way you did? Advice on focus on this, don't focus on that. What advice would you give?
I would say believe in the engine of the business more. I used to worry a lot about every sale. I used to personalize and worry a lot more about, you know, every business, every account, every new business opportunity, every employee, and their decision making. And I learned along the way that, you know, if you play it right, you build an engine, you build a new business engine, you build great talent, you build great legal process, you build great finance process. And so no one thing or one person or one anything is worth the crying over, so to speak. I just got a lot more realistic about what how these different engines work within a business, and I'm a lot more comfortable. And I see younger leaders struggling with a lot of that too. When you have a smaller organization and you're building it, everything seems to be on your back. Every employee matters, every move matters. But building a process and building an engine which is bigger than yourself, and then believing in it, knowing as you continue to facilitate it that that's where the real strength of the organization lies, is it's a comforting and kind of evolutionary place to be in leadership, I think, from my experience.
Joy, thank you so much for letting us pick your brain here today and kind of diving into what makes a good leader going forward. So thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you, JD and Mike. It was really fun. Great to see you both.
Mike, we missed the great opportunity to ask about the Drake Diner.
Oh my God, you're right. I went on and on about the robots taking over in the future and traveling back in time, and I forgot about the Drake Diner. You're right. I should have brought that up.
What if you went back to the Drake Diner? And I've eaten there many times. I know you have as well. And It's all just robots, serving you your food behind the counter, all of it.
I don't think I'd mind it, actually. As long as I can get the California burger, which was the one I would always get. And I mainly got that burger because it was really good if I was hungover.
Which never happened. Never happened in college, right?
No, never in college.
Well, it was so great to have Joy part of the show. And I encourage you to go back and listen to past episodes of C-Level Up. We've had some great interviews, much like Joy, fantastic leaders. There's a lot of great stuff to check out there. So you can see those at jamesdwayne.com or wherever you listen to your podcasts. So do that. And until next time, we'll see you.